Hello, everyone. I'm Manisha Dewan, an executive coach and facilitator from San Diego, California. And I'm so excited to be with you here today to talk about the future of work and how leadership might evolve, what our role is as coaches, catalysts for change, and change makers could be to impact leadership. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about what the future could look like. And it's so exciting to realize that we don't even need to reimagine it. We can also actively co-create it. Over the next 10 years, 50% of the Fortune 500 companies will be replaced. They'll either be taken over by innovative startups that enter the market, by bankruptcy, or even acquisition. So companies and leaders know that innovation is not just a buzzword and a trend. It's vital to survive and thrive in today's climate. In fact, a lot of companies and leaders feel that the biggest challenge isn't from external threats and competitors, but the challenges really reside within the internal culture of an organization, how companies can create and sustain a culture of innovation and encourage experimentation. So it's going to be important to talk through today a little bit about how change is really happening for all of us and what it really means, what matters, how we can be more future forward, how we can also empower our clients to be more future forward as well. I'm so honored to be part of this community where we can share ideas and experiences. Please feel free to leave your comments, thoughts, and questions in the chat, and I will be actively monitoring them as we go along. Let's just take a moment first and pause and breathe. There's so much change happening around us, and it can feel overwhelming. This transition period we are all embarking in is destabilizing, tumultuous, and can even feel traumatic at times. It's important that we're patient with ourselves, with each other. We practice compassion. We're kind. We give each other the space and grace to learn and grow. And also remembering that change is not just happening on an individual level, but collectively as well. So if we can come together as a community, help each other, lean on each other for support, that can be really helpful. Let's just take a moment now and step back into the past. How many of you recognize some of these items? I might be dating myself a bit, but I've certainly interacted with several of these products. I remember going to our local music store and listening to CDs for hours. We've come a long way with music and information in the cloud. A lot of these were very disruptive when they first launched. They were innovative. They served to solve a problem. What comes to mind for you? What do you remember? While some of these may no longer be available, they set the foundation for even more innovation to come. Now let's step into the present. What is? Where are we today? We know that we're still in a constant state of flux, that even more technology and change is coming to the forefront. Changes like facial recognition, social media, space exploration, drones, and robots are all very real. And even more innovation can come our way and disrupt our lives. Think about even how things might be automated for you. Maybe it's the way you pay your bills or get your groceries delivered. The key is to remember that each of us experience technology, change, and progress a little bit differently. Can you remember the first time you sat in front of your computer or purchased your very first smartphone? What was the learning curve like? How comfortable were you with it? And it makes sense that while change and disruption can be a little bit jarring at first, our ability as humans to evolve and adapt is so powerful. And now it might be hard to imagine life without some of these products. So what piece of technology, what change has really impacted the way you live? And what could be hard to live without now? Let's now go into a time warp and step into the future. What could be? What could the future look like? While I may not have a crystal ball, we can certainly look at insights, trends, predictions, and even tap into our own intuition to see what lies ahead. We know that billions of dollars are being spent on space tourism, colonizing other planets. A lot of this is already available. Every industry is being disrupted. If we look at the aviation industry, for example, flying cars, autonomous vehicles are going to be more prevalent and change the way we commute and work in the coming decades. More advancements in robotics and artificial intelligence could free up our time as AI works to take over more dangerous or mundane tasks. That means that we get to tap into our higher cognitive abilities and solve even more complex problems. And while AI might be displacing certain jobs, it's actually creating 3 jobs for every job it takes. In fact, over 65% of students in primary school will have jobs in the future that don't even exist today. Education reform is actually the key to all of this as well. We may need to step back even further and see how we can provide access and skills to children before they even enter the workforce so that they're more prepared. Think about how the coaching world will also change and evolve. Imagine an immersive reality you can create for your clients where they can build their own journeys using virtual or augmented reality to visualize and create a future for themselves, maybe come face to face with their fears, and even try to heal some traumas or wounds from their past. It's important to remember as well that as our external world is changing, our inner programming and mindsets also need to evolve. So what are you excited about? And what makes you nervous? All of the emotions that we're feeling across the spectrum are completely normal. Considerations like data privacy and ethics are really important. So please share your thoughts and let me know, what are you really excited about? What energizes you? And what could potentially make you pause and reflect? The next chart I want to share with you it really illustrates how the pace of innovation truly is accelerating at a much more rapid pace than it was even just a few decades ago. As you can see, the slope trend upward much faster. The question is, how ready are we? How ready are we to challenge the status quo? A lot of companies, people, leaders might be resistant to change, and it makes sense. It means that we have to dismantle a lot of the systems and structures that we've worked so hard to put into place. And it can be challenging to let those go. So it's important as coaches that we respect and honor where our clients might be on their journey, and also when appropriate, challenge them if they might be holding themselves back from living their true potential. I want to talk today also about some key skills that are going to be needed for the future of work and leadership. And I've termed a few of them here into the ARC model. We'll talk about more of those skills in a moment, but let's just highlight a few of these: agility, resilience, curiosity, and creativity. Agility meaning our ability to be flexible and nimble in the face of change, to pivot. Resilience meaning our ability to bounce back and recover from setbacks, no matter how challenging they may be. And certainly global events are teaching us those very skills. Curiosity, to lean into what else, what more, to ask those empowering questions that coaches are so great at, and to have a desire to learn. Creativity. Now, creativity is not about how artistic you are, how well you can draw or write or paint. It's really about connecting things, as Steve Jobs said, or it's about what I like to say, connecting to your inner child and re-engaging with that sense of play and wonder. We know that change is happening at a global level, at a universal level. And if we take the microcosm of the workplace and examine that dynamic for a moment, we can gather a lot of insights. There's a lot of things that are being torn down and questioned and essentially dismantled. But in destruction lies creation, and we have an opportunity to redefine and redesign what work looks like. So paradigms like defined boxes, command control, hierarchical structures are being shifted into maybe more fluid dynamics, something that's uncertain and moving pieces. A lot of these systems might have been outdated, dysfunctional, and even toxic. So, what does work look like? What could it look like? How is it measured? Is it based on outcomes, our personal preferences or processes? Let's look at a few key trends here. The first is digital acceleration. Companies are doubling down on their digital investments, whether it's to automate more processes or be more digitally driven, thinking about how to upgrade some of their technology. This is a key priority for many companies in the wake of change. This is necessitating a lot of skills to also be accelerated, to continue to upskill and reskill the workforce and develop a mindset of continual learning. Again, this goes back to our education system. How can we disrupt that altogether so these skills are brought to the forefront at an earlier age? Reimagining work altogether. What does it look like? Whether it's remote, on-site, hybrid, or a combination of the three. Thinking about flexibility and success and how to be productive really anywhere. Companies and leaders are thinking about how to deploy talent on demand and are really challenged with a war for talent. Being able to attract, retain, and engage talent and incentivize them to come back to the workforce. Thinking through talent shortages and gaps and how to fill that. So a lot of strategic investments in retention, engagement, and rethinking and how work should be done. Flipping perspectives and organizational models. This also ties into our well-being, which is so important today. Over 1 billion people globally suffer from some type of mental health condition. And over 40% of adults have reported an increase in stress over the last year. It's no wonder given everything we're going through. So how do we integrate our work and our lives in a more healthy and meaningful way? Taking a look at diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, not just a way to meet the metrics and to check the boxes, but to really drive change at a systemic level, not only an institutional level, being able to uncover some of those unconscious biases and uncover what does it mean to belong in an organization. Beyond having a diverse team, do people really feel included? And that comes from the hearts of people, not just something that's written on paper. In addition, we're seeing a lot of generational shifts as newer generations enter the workplace and older generations exit. We may encounter actually more in common across generations than we think. But how prepared are companies to really think about digital natives entering the workplace? This is all contributing and leading to a cultural transformation and overhaul. Employees are demanding more flexible workplaces and really just a cultural change. As we each re-examine our own values, again, what does the future of work look like and how do we co-create that? The future of work is human-centric. It revolves around the people and it's agile, which means it will evolve again. So how has work changed for you or for your clients? In examining skills even further, I've bucketed them into these 4 categories. The need for human-centric skills is going to be important. Higher cognitive skills like critical thinking, adaptability. We've talked about some of these with the ARC model. Let's take a look at some more. Coaching as a skill. Yes, coaching is going to be a very powerful skill. Now more than ever, listening is important. Listening to what's not being said, checking in with others, providing support, asking those thought-provoking questions. Also, digital curiosity. What I like to say is we don't need to have digital mastery. We don't need to necessarily know all the underpinnings and architecture of technology, but just have a sense of curiosity and wonder and begin to ask the questions. What is this piece of technology doing? How might it change the way we work or live? What does all of this mean and ladder up to? Again, that constant state of change, digital disruption. Leaders and all of us are being faced with multiple challenges from navigating change to managing our own mental health. Remember, in difficulty lies opportunity. So we can in this together, and we have the opportunity to chart out what the new world can look like. I want to walk you through now what it means to be a future forward leader and empower you with some tools, some exercises and resources that you can begin to use today with yourself or with your clients. The first is going to be an exercise. You're just going to need a sheet of paper and something to write with. And this is an exercise that will really warm up those creativity muscles. It's something you can do later. You can draw even more circles and give yourself more time for this exercise. For the purpose of today, we're going to take 15 seconds. And in those 15 seconds, I want you to draw as many recognizable objects using these blank circles as possible. For example, a ball. Ready, go. So it's important to remember again that sometimes we get disconnected with our creativity. And if we just take a moment to re-engage, to practice playing and having fun, we can tap into it again. All right, so time is up. Feel free to take some pictures and share your creations. And I will go ahead and share mine with you as well. In full transparency, I took 30 seconds, so a little bit more time, and created a few objects here, including pizza, ice cream. Clearly, I was hungry when I did this exercise. Again, the purpose is to tap into that inner child and not lose that sense of childlike wonder. This quote here beautifully says that the creative adult is the child that survived within each of us. I also want to share with you my 5 R's of innovation. And you can lean into this as you're thinking about how to be more creative or innovative. The first is to relentlessly be curious. Get radically curious about yourself, about others, about the world around you, and ask, what else? What if? What more? The second is to ruthlessly prioritize. There are so many things that are going to be headed our way, and our plate is going to be overfilled with so many priorities. So if you can get clear on and intentional, where do you want to spend your time and your energy? What's really important here? What really matters? And where should you focus? It's okay to say no, set healthy boundaries, and table some ideas and projects for later. In addition, how can you relish ambiguity? Become more comfortable with the unknown and welcome in change. Designers and architects are great at this. They're used to working with unfinished product or incomplete projects and trusting the process, knowing that the answers will reveal themselves over time. So how can you begin to be more comfortable with the unknown? Next is to rely not just on data, but on our intuition. And a way to do that is to reflect often, to just take a moment of silence, get centered and grounded, and connect with how you're feeling. What does your intuition tell you? Can you distinguish between your intuition and the voice of fear, something that might be trying to keep you small and hold you back? Or is it a more powerful, quiet voice that's actually your intuition speaking to you? Now we're going to talk about a powerful methodology called design thinking, which some of you may be familiar with, that can be used to solve some really complex problems. It focuses on human-centered approach and understanding problems at a much deeper level. It encourages us to fall in love with the problem, not the solution. It has a bias for action over discussion. Design thinking was popularized by the global agency IDEO and has been used everywhere from designing products to solving some pressing problems like global hunger, poverty, education, and healthcare crises. Let's take a look at traditional methods of problem solving, which are quite linear. You identify a problem, you create some solutions, and you implement them. Now, there's some shortcomings with this model. Oftentimes, we may spend so much time in the solutioning phase that we forget, what are we actually solving for? What's the underlying problem? Or we've built such a robust solution that it's very costly to rework and refine it. Design thinking turns this model around. It's really about deploying small micro experiments, getting learnings quickly. Design thinking is nonlinear. It's an iterative process, which means you can go across the phases and you don't necessarily have to follow the sequence. You can repeat, for example, perhaps you prototyped and tested something out in the market, you've gathered some learnings, and you go back to prototype again. So design thinking is fantastic. It celebrates resilience. It's about inviting people to the table, including a wider set of voices, inviting the user to the table to solve the problems. If you can imagine how we solve the employee experience, invite employees to the table, ask them what's important to them, and co-create solutions. Design thinking is really centered in empathy. If we can empathize with the people we're trying to solve the problem for, we can come to more realistic and sustainable solutions. Empathy means immersing ourselves in the environment of our users or our clients, observing them, asking them questions, and really stepping into their shoes. Beyond the methodology, it's important to adopt mindsets of design thinking, and they are as follows. Empathy, we talked about, again, immersing yourself in the shoes of another. Having some optimism. Now, optimism doesn't mean you have to run around and skip and be happy all the time, but it's about having a sense of optimism, really believing in the possibilities, no matter how many obstacles there may be, having a sense of hope. Again, comfort with ambiguity, being confident in your creative abilities, even if you're not artistic, just sharing and putting your ideas out in the world, making it. Again, just putting something out there, creating something. Design thinking favors progress over perfection. So even if it's a scrappy, low fidelity prototype, just make something and see what findings you get. Really learning from our failures too. This can be challenging to do because failure can feel inefficient. Failure means we have to start, stop, restart again. But it's actually very powerful. Failure can be one of our biggest teachers. In fact, Thomas Edison, who created the light bulb, had thousands of prototypes before he created his final product. And he said that I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And every one of those prototypes, every one of those quote unquote failures led to his final creation and were important learnings for him. So how can we reframe failure, create a safe to fail culture where we give each other some leeway and maybe even celebrate failures along the way and the learnings we've acquired? Remembering again that this is all an iterative process. We can go back, we can refine. We don't have to have the fully baked out final solution. It's about getting those refinements and learnings inside and then taking those learnings and embedding them into the next version. Let's now take a look at design thinking in action using a case study. So chronically ill children, they need to get MRIs and diagnostics frequently. And oftentimes they're frightened, they're scared, they have a lot of anxiety. It makes sense. You walk into a dimly lit room with a machine that's making all kinds of noises and have to go inside a tunnel and you're not quite sure what's happening. As a result, many of those children had to be sedated for the procedure. So an industrial designer from GE decided to examine the problem and see if there was a way to solve it. He started with empathy, really immersing himself in the patients' lives, speaking with pediatric patients, child life specialists, even visiting his local museum to understand what children really care about, what's important to them. And from his findings, he learned what really mattered, what children really desire in their hearts. So it wasn't just about how do we create a better diagnostic experience for children. The problem statement became, how might we create an experience for children that embodies adventure and makes them feel special? This is truly what mattered to children. They wanted to feel special and a sense of adventure. And so the Adventure Series MRI was born. It wasn't just about changing the look of the equipment and painting it. It was really about redesigning the entire end-to-end experience. From the moment the child steps foot into the room, they're greeted by a technician, given a coloring book. The technician walks through an entire script that makes the child feel like they're having an adventure for the day. They get to be a pirate or an astronaut. The results were that patient satisfaction scores went up to 90%. And children even asked their parents if they can come the next day. There were financial benefits as well. The procedure didn't need to be repeated because children sat still. They thought they were going to blast off into outer space. So the key lesson here is to empathize with who we're solving the problem for, really understand what matters to them, what their pain points are, and try to alleviate them through our solutions. With a mindset of design thinking, how can we influence the future of work and leadership? Let's talk about another case study example. And this is a cautionary tale in innovation. Sometimes we might over-innovate or think that we need to innovate just because it's cool or sexy or fun. How many of you here are musicians or music lovers? If so, you might recognize these brands, Fender and Gibson. The CEO of Gibson was extremely passionate and obsessed with innovation. He was heralded as one of the greatest innovators and continued to release new products, new features, new instruments, and accessories for guitars and musicians. After 116 years in business, Gibson went bankrupt. What happened? Meanwhile, Fender was flourishing and they kept growing and taking market share. Well, the key is to consider the reason for innovation. We really should be innovating to delight the customer, to solve a pain point, not just for the sake of innovation. A lot of these cool products didn't resonate and land with the customers, and they didn't really even care about them. And the CEO was just, again, innovating for the sake of innovation. Fender, on the other hand, they looked closely at qualitative and quantitative data from their customers, really understood what they wanted. They found out that over half of the customers that purchased guitars are first-time musicians, and a lot of them are also female. So they created a whole new learning and education platform and also catered to women buyers. As a result, their sales skyrocketed. Again, it was because they understood their customers and what they really cared about. So innovation really requires all three. We've talked about some of the skill sets like agility, resilience, curiosity, those mindsets like creating a safe to fail environment, being comfortable with ambiguity. And now I want to walk you through some powerful tools that you can take away. Every phase of design thinking has some really great tools and resources that you can use. Think about how you might want to use these in your practice. The first is the empathy map. So in the empathy phase, again, it's all about stepping into the shoes of another. As you're sitting with your client, use this document to fill in the information. What does your client see? What do they feel? What do they hear? What do they actually do? How can you uncover some of their pain points, their frustrations, their desires and hopes and dreams? This exercise forces us to be present and engaged with the client, really to listen to what's being said and what's not being said. And it can also be used as a powerful mirror to reflect back to the client and ask them, how true is this for you? How much of this resonates with you? And capturing that and maybe repeating that exercise in a few months. The next tool is once you've empathized with and understood your client, now you can really start to define what is the underlying problem. What are the frustrations that they're feeling? In the case of the employee experience or the future of work, maybe the problem statement becomes, how might we create an experience that's engaging, inclusive, and safe for our employees? This statement is very powerful. The how invokes this spirit of possibilities. How might we? We is a collective term that perhaps it's not something we need to do alone. So think about how you might want to leverage this tool. In the next phase, ideate. This is a very fun phase. We have to remember that it's all about inviting people to the table, including them. There's no such thing as a bad idea at this time. Really, it's just putting our judgment to the side and building upon each other's ideas. In improv, there's a tool that they use called yes and. It's a technique that really just helps to create an environment where people feel like their voices are heard, and it gives the ideas a chance to be listened to and debated. So instead of saying no, but this will never work. No, how are we ever going to make this happen? No, this is a crazy idea. It becomes yes and. Yes, and let's also do this. Yes, and how about this idea? So again, deferring judgment. It's about quantity over quality at this point, and falling in love with the problem, not the solution. Have fun during this stage. As you move into the prototype phase, you might be wondering, well, how do we know? What can we test? What can we put out into the market? What can we test with our clients or customers? There's a couple frameworks you can use. The first is an impact and effort matrix, looking at potentially what has the highest impact but lowest amount of effort that we can get into the hands of users so you can get learnings quickly and then iterate. The other is looking at it through three lenses: desirability, viability, and feasibility. What do the clients and users really care about? What might be a desirable feature or product for them or service? But what's really viable and feasible for you to do in the time that you have? And where those three intersect can be a sweet spot and can give some information into what you might want to prototype. Now, prototypes can be, again, scrappy, low fidelity, two-dimensional. They can be mock-ups, wireframes, even using scripts. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Later down the line, sure, you can prototype an app in something higher fidelity. But again, the key is just to put something out there and get those learnings. As you're testing, make sure to engage with your user, engage with your client, ask them for feedback. This is a great feedback matrix capture tool, including things like what worked, what didn't work, what could be improved, what questions do you have? If you had a magic wand, what would you want? It really invokes and creates and promotes a conversation that might not be had otherwise, and gleans even more insights into possibilities. I want to also share with you some innovation mantras that I've created that hopefully can help you, can empower you, can make you feel equipped to step into a mindset of creativity and innovation. Let me know which of these resonate with you, or even if you have some of your own. In ambiguity, I trust. To empower others is to empower innovation. I will notice something new today and appreciate its beauty. I celebrate failures and appreciate the wisdom gained. I may fear change, but I'm curious about what it might bring. I live to learn, I learn to teach, I teach to grow. So what are some of your innovation mantras? And what are some of your key takeaways from our time together today? How might you want to be a more innovative or future forward leader, or empower your clients to be the same? We know that the pressure to innovate, the pressure to change, it's really going to pose an opportunity for all of us to reinvent, reshape, and reimagine. How ready are you? I invite you to connect with each other, connect with me. I'd love to hear from you, stay engaged, and keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey today. I wish you all the best. Take good care.